thank you very much for being part of this. I really appreciate it, and great to speak with you today. And maybe we can just start with some basics. So, just sort of the goals that you set when you took on the marketing tasks for Peace by Chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Well, we took on the marketing tasks before they were called Peace by Chocolate. So our goal was to give them a proper name and help them with their packaging so that they could, it wasn't, they were using these just sort of plastic, like eggshell crates, like, if that makes sense, but you know what I mean? Those clear plastic ones, you see them in the grocery store. So they were just putting their chocolates in those. So we wanted to give them a name, give them like a bit of a visual identity, give them a proper package so that the chocolates could go in something that was custom, and then give them a basic website. So if someone was searching online, they could find them. So we agreed to do that for them in the early spring of 2016. And we did it pro bono. It was, if you think back to that time, everyone was raising money for Syrian refugees, that early 2016. And my company was very young at that point, and we didn't have a lot of money to throw around, but I very much identified with that work that was being done and the importance of immigration and sort of equity through immigration. So for us, I heard Tarek on the radio talking about wanting to get his chocolate company restarted. And so we reached out and sort of made some connections and said, when you're ready, let us know. And we'll take care of that for you, the packaging and all that. So that's how it started. And so the goal was just to sort of help get them like professionally packaged, basically. Right. And that was fine. It was fun. It was good to get to know them. And we did that. So that was the first goal.
It's a great story. It's a great human interest story. A wonderful, very Canadian story. Some core ideals that were driving the marketing campaign. What did you really want to do for Peace by Chocolate?
Well, what we wanted to do was take the sort of the nugget that they were starting with, which was Tarek's father, and his passion for chocolate, and the effect that it has on people. So, normally you sit with clients and they say, well, we want to grow by this percentage, or we're trying to, expand into this market. And certainly we've had those conversations since. But at the outset, it was about, chocolate makes people happy. And how can we use happiness and chocolate to make the world better? That was kind of what they were saying. Their initial name was New Syrian Canadian Refugees for Peace. So that was their first name, right? So it was it was clear that there was a broader purpose there, and so our role was to help them simplify that down and communicate in a way that was emotionally resonant. I mean, that's the basis of good branding and marketing, right? Is simplification and make me care, pull on my heartstrings. So that was our objective. That's sort of what we focused on, and it just ballooned from there.
So you had some short-term goals and longer-term. You've been at it for a few years.
There was no long-term goal at the start. There was zero long-term goals. We really thought. I mean, you're not from Nova Scotia, but like Antigonish is a small community. My wife's from there. I went to high school there and university there, so I know the community well. And I was under the impression that this was going to be a small local chocolate company. Like a nice little boutique spot in a small town that's very tourist friendly. That's what I thought it was going to be. And they did too. So there wasn't really a lot of like long-term thinking. It was just kind of like, oh, this is great. This is nice. The chocolate's good. And that'll be that. They then did a grand opening at the beginning of August for their basically like a little shed. And then CBC Nova Scotia covered that. And this is a very interesting note about the power of journalism and the power of media. So they covered it, but what they did is they created about a 90 or a 2 minute, maybe a 90-second or a 2-minute like vignette about the grand opening and a little bit about the story, and it went viral. So that was, at the very beginning of August 2016 is when it first starts to go viral, and so they're growing. They're very, very busy.
And really, they were very new to Canada at that point.
Very new. Oh yeah, very new. And what was interesting, like these things like this went viral, and they didn't have an online store. All they had was their little storefront that they had just opened, and the farmers market, a couple farmers markets. And so like they showed up to their farmers market, and there was a giant line, there's people waiting for them. Yeah. So it was, all very unexpected. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I said to Tarek, I think it was maybe mid-August, I said, you're really great to get some good photography, right? Like your photography is not the greatest, Mm-hmm. And we were at this point, we were looking at doing, even more custom, like an even better package for them. Thank you. And so I was like, it'd be great if we had some good photography for the packaging. And he agreed. And I said, I know you don't have a lot of money, but if you could scrounge together a bit to hire the photographer, we'll take care of everything else. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. And it was, I think, the very beginning of September or whatnot. I can't remember the exact date it was, but we were doing the photo shoot up here in Halifax, and we had the food artist doing her thing, and I was art directing, and the photographer crew that we worked with. Everything was great. We were just getting started, and then my phone started to blow up. And it was Justin Trudeau talking about Peace by Chocolate at the United Nations. Mm-hmm. And that's when everything went insane. Yeah. So that's when we started to think long term, because it was like, oh, okay, this is a thing now. Barack Obama was 20 feet away from him when he's telling the story of Peace by Chocolate, right? And so that went unbelievably viral. Mm-hmm. And we could see like website analytics and stuff. We could see like, oh my God, people, and their social media took off. And so it was about then that Tarek's father said, okay, we should pay Neil and his little team up in Halifax. It was just me and one other guy. Like, it wasn't.
Because you're still doing this pro bono.
All of it was pro. That photo shoot was pro bono, right? Yeah. But it was just so ironic. Like, here we are finally taking our first good pictures of this product for this kind of neat brand, and then all of a sudden my phone's blowing up, right? Right. And Tarek starts to call me. He said, "You're not going to believe what's happening." So it was kind of, it was wild. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't long after that his father said, we should start paying and become a customer. So and that's what began the more long-term thinking. Right. So we turned our attention then towards getting an online store up and running. And we
I wanted to ask about that. I want to ask a couple of things. I mean, I love that you talk about the fact that it tugs at the heartstrings, and of course everybody loves chocolate. So in terms of developing the target markets, who really do you see as being the target market for the demographics that make up the customer base?
Well, this might be the most successful marketing thing I've ever done, and it came with very little planning. We always talked about riding the wave. So like once it got going and started, it was like, okay, how do we ride this wave of attention and interest for future longevity? How do we get the most out of it? It was very clear early on that our target customer was and is a socially progressive, left of center voter. I do some political consulting, I do some political work, and I'm familiar with those genres or those audience profiles. So in Canada, our customer is Liberal voters and NDP voters and Greens. Right. There's a limited interest in the conservative space, but like staunchly conservative ridings in Alberta, we don't do well, right? Like they're just not interested. Like they see, and it's not a personal thing.
No.
I think
you can accept that and work with it.
Completely. They're scared about the idea that immigration is going to change the country, and certainly that fear has been stoked. So we're understanding of it. But the places we do well, and the folks who are who love the story when they hear it are people who are progressive by nature, and inclusive. Right. More worldly thinking. Yeah. And we've always known that. And so what we try to do is behave in a way that is authentic to that community, but not offensive or problematic to those who are less comfortable. Right. Because this just takes time, right? And frankly, like I look at the Peace by Chocolate work that we do as the most important work I do. Not because of the paycheck; they're not our biggest client, but. I mean, at times they were, but now they're not. We've tried to balance that out.
Yeah.
But like, I look at it as the most important work that I do because they're the number one refugee success story in North America, probably.
Yeah.
You know, so, and this is at a time when refugees are expected to, you know, we're expected to see a giant increase in the number of refugees due to famine, due to war, due to climate change, right? So people's opinions about refugees matter a lot.
Yes.
And certainly coming from Atlantic Canada, and this might not be interesting at all for your audience, for your class, but Atlantic Canada is dying. We're demographically doomed. We desperately need immigration here in order to sustain ourselves. Like, we can't afford to pay for things, you know. So it's really important that Atlantic Canadians like immigrants.
Well, we've seen that. I mean, I've got neighbors who came from New Brunswick and others who came from Newfoundland, and here we are in, you know, outside of Toronto, and you get a lot of people from the East Coast, the Atlantic provinces coming here. So you have that outward flow, and you need to build that infrastructure.
There's the out migration due to opportunity, and then there's just also like everyone here is getting older and older and older, right? Like it's an important brand and story because of that. And so that's always on our mind is, okay, how do we make sure that we're furthering the conversation around peace and being a real example of what's possible when people work together and think positively.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no. This is great. So I'm really interested in that social media aspect. So using social media to really build awareness of the company. I know that factored in a big way. How does that work, and how has it worked? Well,
so for almost every product that Peace by Chocolate has rolled out, we've created for them with their help. But like, we conceptualize it and design the packaging, all that sort of stuff. We think about all of that from the realm of sort of viral stickiness.
Yep.
So like, when we think of a chocolate bar, it's like, it's not a chocolate bar. It's a statement about peace. It's a statement about humanity. It's a statement about this brand. You know, how would this brand put a chocolate bar out in the market, and what would it say? They're not really a chocolate company. They're much more a cause. And so everything we do, and this will be interesting for your PR people because it's complete PR. Like, everything we do is designed to further the story and to make it like consumable and easy to pick up by the media.
Yeah.
So the first chocolate bar we introduced is called the Peace Bar, and it's in over 20 different languages, and on every bar is translation. And the first bar we released says Wantakuti on it, which is Mi'kmaq for peace, and then right on it is the translation. So and the idea is that peace is beautiful in every language. So like, that was the big aha moment. It was like, wait a second, peace is always beautiful. It doesn't matter what your background is. That word is always beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's put it front and center. And so we knew that was a good idea, and it made sense. And then I think it was Christiane on our team here said, let's make it like an indigenous language because they're the first peoples. Like, you know, that's the right thing to do. And as soon as we did that, the media picked it up right away, right? And so that was like, it was intentional. It was absolutely part of the strategy. Sorry.
That's good.
But it was done with that in mind. Like, okay, how would this? Because we don't have a marketing budget. Like, we have like a marketing budget, but there's no ad budget. And in the consumer packaged goods space, in chocolate, like in confectionery, oh my God! Like, we'll never spend enough to be able to compete. So we have to innovate, right? Like, we have to be creative and storytell in a way that gets us free and earned media. And we've been very lucky to earn that, you know. And then, but it's dangerous too, right? To build your business on that. It means you always have to be right. You know, you got to be behaving correctly. You got to be within your brand values. You know, so it's you know, naturally though, Tarek is a good person, you know, and so I'm not worried about, oh, Jesus, is he going to do something that? No, he just exudes who he is, and so we've always tried to build around that too. Like, tell the story, but tell it authentically. And then you don't have to worry.
And he really is the ideal spokesperson.
Completely. I'm really great at picking clients.
Yeah. Now, Now he said, Tarek said, his quote, this is marketing for Peace by Chocolate is like the ocean for the fish. I think it's a great testimonial.
Quote? Yeah.
What does that mean for this is marketing?
Well, it means a lot. Just on a personal level, it means a lot. We're a small company, and we put everything into this. It absolutely has been a labor of love. We've broken all the professional rules about not getting too close to your client and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, we just the story matters a lot to me. What his family has been through, and what hundreds of thousands of families like his have been through, needs a voice. Mm-hmm. It's important. People have to understand how quickly things can change, and have a heart for that. So when he said that, it was really touching. That's a couple years ago now that he said that, but it was like, it's hard because every day, like, and as marketing students and stuff, like, they're gonna work their butt off and get no credit for it, right? Like, they'll get paid, but like, when you're doing work that ends up in outer space, like his product has gone to outer space, like, that's a big deal. But we're like the silent partner over here, and we're supposed to be. Like, that's the whole point. Like, we're the behind the scenes engine, not a problem. So I wouldn't expect him or anyone else to speak a bunch publicly about us. So when he gave us that testimonial, it meant a lot, because it's like saying, like, we're basically the ecosystem that allows them to thrive, and that was really touching, because we certainly put enough work in to try to be that for them. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that you got started just around the same time. I think 2015, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you were around for maybe a year before Tarek and his family arrived, and so you've been able to grow together. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, it was super problematic, actually, in the first little bit, because there'll be people in your class that want to strike out on their own and do their own company. I'm sure of it. So this will be good to tell them. It's really important not to have all your eggs in one basket. And normally the inclination is, look at all this work, I'm going to go do this work, and we're going to get paid a lot and whatever. And so you end up in that situation where you're 2 years in, you're 2 years down the line, almost all your revenue is coming from one client.
Right.
Then if they make a change or something, if they decide we're going to go with someone else, you're basically out of business. And I was aware of that intellectually, but when we got into it, the work was so meaningful to me that I kind of had blinders on. It was so important. And not every journey is perfect. Most journeys aren't. And we did hit a very bumpy patch almost 2 years ago now with Peace by Chocolate. And so it wasn't really anyone's fault. It's just, things happen. It's when you're growing a business from nothing to like big, there's weird points, right? And so they hit a weird point, and we basically got fired. It was brutal, and they were a large percentage of our business. So, it's a good lesson to don't let emotion get in the way. You have to have a diverse portfolio of clients. It's very dangerous in our field not to do that. Right. We were able to stay. We were able to hang on. I didn't lay anybody off. Thank God. We worked our butts off, and we were basically just getting good and stable again. And then COVID happened. And we didn't lay anyone off again, which is good. So, and then we've been working with Peace by Chocolate again now for a while, but at a different percentage of our overall work.
Right.
For that reason.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I don't have any other questions, but what a great
I'm a pretty
success
open
story.
book. You can ask me anything you want.
No, it's all good. It's a great thing. I was going to say, you have an anecdote or two about, where you said, hey, this is all worthwhile. This is really coming together the way we want it to.
Yeah, I do, actually. We when do they open the store? In March?
Yeah.
So they opened their first flagship store in March. It's not long ago. In a place called Queen's Mark is the building here in downtown Halifax, and just across the harbor. We're in Dartmouth. They're just across the harbor. the Queen's Mark is the single most expensive development in the history of Atlantic Canada as a residential and commercial property.
Mm-hmm.
It's very large, and its location is very expensive. The way it has been done it's stunning. The facility is stunning. And Peace White Chocolate was the first company to open a commercial space in that building. It will be a hub on the waterfront here for years, and Peace White Chocolate was the first one to open there in March. None of that's particularly interesting. What the reason it was sort of a big deal for me, or a milestone for me, is I had very little to do with it. So the company hired a company that specializes in retail design, and they hired a whole bunch of people who do different things than us. And this brand that we have had our hands on for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
it was like graduation day.
Right.
A whole bunch of other creative professionals took it and did what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that day when that store opened and seeing the store all done, and it was just like, it was really satisfying, because it was like, it's now gone to the higher, like I took it as high as it could go, and now it's gone even farther.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
to see our work through the creative eyes of others,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like their interpretation and them taking it further. Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. And the store is just stunning. Like they did a great job.
Yeah.
So that day was a big one. And then of course the day that the stuff went to outer space, that was nuts.
Yeah.
Not a lot of stuff that you touch goes to outer space. So
That's true.
that was
That
kind
is
of fun.
true.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I appreciate having a chance to chat with you. I'm just going to